Wow, it's very nice.
Right, yes. Hello, we're back again for your weekly cuppa. That's now, I think this is our 4th week straight, and this is one that I'm well up for. 2 reasons. The general topic is football, always a good start. And on top of that, it's our first podcast with a guest. So, hello, Freddie.
Hello, all.
Hey.
I'm very happy to be here alongside football. That's really my only interest. So, makes me very happy.
How many hours do you have on Football Manager, Fred? Just to put into
This
context.
is a really poor way to start, boys.
Great first question. I'm just.
This is a way to put into context how obsessed you are with football.
What are we saying? Over this year?
No, just total.
The most recent one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2021.
2021.
790 hours.
Jeez.
Wow.
There you go. That puts into context.
I'm very much a football nerd, by the way.
Who is it you support then, Freddie? Let everyone know a bit about you.
I support, for people who don't know, I support Derby County of the Championship. And they are very poor at the moment. Let's put it that way.
Fellow
For not
lower
using
league
better
support
words.
alongside Will and I. Obviously, me being an
Hey.
Ipswich fan.
Up the lower leagues.
Proper lower league. Oh, we'll be down there soon, boys. Don't worry.
I'm just a bit of a plastic fan, though.
Yeah, massively.
United.
Massively,
I mean-
always been, never change.
When it's big matches, City
So-
beat United. And
Surely you need to be a plastic fan of a successful club to be considered.
Oh wow!
well,
Straight in there.
The shots are starting.
Straight in there.
Not too
Good
bad.
job.
That's going to hit
Well,
deeper on Ethan than James.
Yeah, I
since he's an
mean-
actual
Yeah,
United
that was
fan.
the plan.
Wow! Wow!
Hey, we're difficult spot, but things are on the up. We got come back when any other teams won 13 Premier League titles. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my
Yeah, he's got a point.
I'll just keep talking about history until we win something again. That's all I care about.
You sound like
That's why, I mean, the players are doing enough, but the problem is, my point is that, governing bodies and clubs aren't doing enough. So it's just getting worse because the players are talking about it.
If you look at most stadiums nowadays, most stadiums are split into 4. If it's a fairly recent new stadium, most stadiums are split into 4. There's usually a stand that's more singing, more supporting, most of the time more aggressive, and there's a family stand, and then you've got 2 stands on the side. The family stand is for the families to get away from the people who the people who want to go and cause trouble. But that stereotype and that stigma is already there, and I think it needs to change to more supporting rather than.
Yeah,
I think
it's horrendous at the moment. It really is. The fact that, I feel like it's even getting worse, actually, to be honest.
Do you think
As-
football
as-
hasn't? Do you think football's got an attitude problem?
oh, we'll abuse this player for 90 minutes because it's fun for us. Oh yeah,
massively.
1 million percent.
Yeah, it's
Now you sounded like
Liverpool fan.
yeah, I was
no,
gonna say,
it's,
it sounded like
it's bad, but they won the Premier League, so my life's over.
Yeah.
fair enough.
On that,
Freddie.
who do you reckon's going to win it this year then?
Oh, well,
Oh.
we should say that
I
we're
think it's-
recording this in February, obviously.
There's-
So
yeah.
City are
there's
running
a-
away with it.
Got to be City,
Yeah,
surely.
there's only one team that I'll accept as an answer here, boys.
Nice.
And it has to be City. It has to be City.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone will catch him this year. I think they'll slowly just romp away to another season like there was 2 seasons ago where no one's in touch with them and they've just been top quality once again.
Yeah, I don't even think if say United have a perfect campaign for the rest of the year, I don't think there's any catching them.
Yeah, same.
Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, because they'd
They're
have
just-
to lose 4 matches, I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
in fact,
James.
they could easily
James!
lose 4
They've got-
matches. They've got loads.
They've got like a 10-point gap or whatever it is.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Guys, whilst we're talking about matches and that, because I'm not too sure, I haven't really been following football that much, but with COVID and that, are all the Premier League matches on television now? Is that how it's working?
Yeah. So every single game's being like on some form of broadcasts, whether it's like BT, Sky, Amazon Prime. Whereas like in other years they haven't done that. But I think it's good that they're doing it because obviously they're not getting ticket revenue, so they'll still get at least some. So lots of clubs are losing money, but the fact that all the games are on TV means that they're getting a little bit still at least.
It's not really any better for the actual football fans, though.
No.
Because like it's all well and good if I could still watch them in my current subscriptions, but I've only got Sky, so like, if any match goes on BT Sport, I'm just got to follow it on Google or the app. Like, there's nothing else, and that's a bit of a shame. But
isn't there something on where you can have like the crowd on or off?
I was going to ask this. What is your opinion on crowd noise?
Without.
I'm without as well. And James, do you watch it regularly enough to have crowd noise?
I've heard both, but I think when the crowd noise is turned off, it just feels a bit like in Wimbledon with tennis, how everything goes quiet. You just hear like grunting and that. So it just, I don't know. I think the crowd really add to the kind of feeling of the match, to be honest.
Yeah, to be fair, like if you're watching it with the crowd noise, it does sound like there are fans there. They've done it quite well, but I just think it's quite cool being able to hear like the shouts and stuff, and you can really see which players dictate the play
and stuff like that.
I'm
hear the beef as well, when things kick off. But I mean, to be honest, I found the crowd noise is quite funny because it's just I just didn't think they were even going to do it. It's not even necessary whatsoever, but they still. I just find it quite entertaining listening to where they put the crowd noise, because has anyone noticed that there's occasionally like they put in like the wrong sounds at the same time?
Yeah, so like if a player goes close to scoring, but it's gone in,
they celebrate.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's just some person sitting on a keyboard with like soundboards. Yeah. I mean, it works well, but I like it without it. I don't really mind. It's still football, isn't it? I mean, I'd rather the sound noise be real. I mean, it's just not the same when it's a computer. And like Ollie said, it is still quite interesting to be able to hear the players more and stuff, because I'd almost like players or at least refs to be mic'd up. Well, they are mic'd up anyway. I
was going to ask that.
They are mic'd up anyway. Well, they are mic'd up anyway, but it's just it's not broadcasted to the public because it's too explicit, isn't it? But I mean, I've always thought that would be quite nice. Yeah, like they do in rugby. But the problem is footballers aren't nearly as nice.
Yeah, I've got quite high opinions of this because I've been a referee for about 4 or 5 years now, and I obviously haven't refereed any high quality games, but I'm refereeing 10, 15-year-old kids, and some of the stuff I get told at 10, 15-year-old games are absolutely outrageous. And there's a stigma around football that you can go to a match and abuse someone for 90 minutes and nothing's wrong with it. And I think for respect to come back into the game, I think that needs to change. And I think it needs to change at the highest level before anything changes at the lowest level. We can't start from the bottom because there's too much. There's too much to change. You have to start at the top because there's less to change.
That's interesting. So did any of you see the incident in the Ipswich Northampton game? I put it on my Instagram.
With the referee?
Yeah. What are your takes on that then? Obviously the ref's just standing up for himself.
What happened? Sorry, Ollie, do you want to explain it?
So an Ipswich player went down in the box. Personally, I think it was a penalty. Could be biased. But ref gave it as a dive. And Ipswich player wasn't very happy. Like, went up to the ref, trying to plead his case, saying that it wasn't a dive. And the ref put his head into the player. Like, when players go up, but it was the ref. But then obviously he was just standing up for himself.
Right.
But then the referee's meant to be there to control the game, and usually when that happens, both players get a yellow card. The ref can't book himself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's not very, and I suppose, it's not very professional. They should be leading by example. It's the footballers for the most part that are the behaviour issues on the pitch, and it's not really correct to see a ref getting involved in that. Like, they've got to be setting. It would be like the Prime Minister squaring up to like some young thug when he's like having a go. You know what I mean? They've got to set a good example, and I mean, yeah, it's not ideal, but the behaviour of footballers on the field needs to be improved, because some of them are like toddlers. Quite frankly, they just are.
And if you compare it to the likes, going back to rugby again, in rugby you've got the respect for the ref, the respect for the other players. Fair enough, they might have a scuff every now and then, but it just seems when they're on the pitch the whole atmosphere is a lot different than with footballers on the pitch. I think that's something that needs to be kind of addressed. The respect between footballers and the refs, and not trying to go all the time for tripping over and making it in something that it isn't, because it's just a bit comical, to be honest.
Well, it's I think the problem with footballers is you've got, obviously it's a very competitive field and very competitive sport, and that's how we all like to see it. But it's almost too big of an ego thing, and because I feel like you could even link in with how much they get paid and all of that stuff just into it, because it all just builds on their ego that they are untouchable and the league revolves around them. I know that's going into a different sort of issue, but I just do think the way they react to the ref a lot of the time is purely because they think they're better than the ref. And because they're such high-class athletes. Like, they know they'll be like, well, I'm better at football than the ref, so why should I listen to him? But they just have no respect. And that's not saying every single Premier League player or English league player is the same. But for me, I can't stand watching it when they're doing that. It's awful.
I don't know if any of you have seen the movement that local FAs are going for. They're trying to get not supporters, but like family of players on like not lower league games, but like grassroots games, to clap the referees onto the pitch. It's a small thing. It's a small bit of respect, but I just don't think things like grassroots will work, because quite simply you're relying on people who have 9-to-5 jobs, are waking up at 8 a.m. on a Sunday to take their 7-year-old kid to play football. I don't think things at grassroots will not work unless it's shown on the big screen at the end of the day. And I think it all starts, and everything will change when Premier League footballers and Championship level footballers and referees and officials and everyone within that top echelon of football starts to respect each other. And I don't think anything will change until that happens.
Well, it's like that whole
agree.
The kneeling before games. It's similar to like that kind of thing. But there are a few teams that have. So I think Brentford, I know for one, have said that they're going to stop doing it, not because they're racist, but because it's not doing anything.
It's plastered. It's plastered now.
And it's meant to show all this respect. Yeah, and it's great. Like, obviously, I'm all for it, but it's just the concept of it. It was the same as everyone sharing them black screens on Instagram. They do one thing and then nothing else changes. So they're doing all this getting down on one knee before a game, but nothing's actually happening. There's no action being taken. And you still hear week in, week out about Twanzebe, the kid from Southampton that got sent off, Martial, Rashford. They're all still getting racially abused, and nothing's changing in it.
Yeah, and a prime example of that is when football fans got let back into the stadiums. What was it, about a month and a half ago, something like that? And Millwall fans booed. Fans booed the knee. And I think at that point you've got to realise it's been going on for 2 or 3 months, or something, probably even longer. And the first thing Millwall fans do when they come back into the stadium, is boo the respect. There's a severe lack of respect within football, and I think it comes down to the players not showing any to anyone really. Maybe their own teammates, but that's about it.
So, guys, can I put a question out to you all then? If you could sit down with Gary Hoffman, who some of our viewers might not know, the chairman of the Premier League. You
Definitely
could
just
sit down
Googled
with
that.
him. I might have done, but
Yeah, it's
gotta
Googled that.
gotta get my research.
Tried to sound smart.
If you could sit down with him, what would you say with him?
I don't know. You'd have to prepare a lot of arguments for that because there's so many issues with the Prem. It's not going to be fixed quick. I think everyone knows that. There's got to be large scale changes. I don't know. I honestly, this is why it's such a difficult thing because I don't even know what to suggest. The simple thing would be just, if you were able to just say footballers need to respect the ref's judgment, and like that just happened overnight, that would be great. But it's going to have to change over generations of different players coming through. So I do think it matters in the earlier grassroots because it's about education and about players understanding that they have to respect the ref's judgment and respect the governing bodies and all that. It's also, if you compare it to like other sports, like I'm a big F1 fan as well, you don't have nearly as much of a difference because I feel like the decisions that they make are far more concrete. Like if a driver does something wrong in a race and they penalise them through the stewards, it's not going to change again later in the game. It's not under doubt. It's a decision. Like after that decision, it's done. Nothing changes, for the most part. But then, in football, especially with the addition of VAR, there's just so many variables to refs' decisions, and it's not ever a concrete decision. And like loads of stuff are getting overturned by VAR or afterwards by the FA. I don't know. There's so much that they need to do about giving concrete decisions to players and also educating them on the importance of respecting the authority. Because quite frankly, it's similar to criminals. Like it's just that same. It's that same difficulty in accepting discipline and accepting authority. So I definitely believe that there's a lot that needs to be done for the young generations coming through because some of the older players are set in their ways. It's not going to be as easy to change those. So it's definitely got to be a generational change.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you guys think the same to what Ethan said? What do you think, Fred?
I agree with it somewhat. I think it'll be extremely hard to make a dent now. I think it's gonna be an over time change. I don't think it's something that can change within the next 10, 15, 20 years. I think we'll be the same. We'll be having the same talk 10 years down the line. I don't think racism will be completely gone out of football in about 10 years' time. I think at the end of the day, if fans can still come to a stadium and abuse someone for 90 minutes without repercussion, I don't think anything will change, really. I think it comes down to the clubs needing to put more effort in stopping fans actually doing that. Bringing supporters.
There's always going to be a minority of people that, are horrible people, and they are going to throw abuse at people. That's never going to change in life, unfortunately. But
is it the club's responsibility, or is it like the governing body's responsibility?
I'd say it falls on both. So
yeah, definitely
clubs have their individual responsibility with their fans and their players to keep them in line, but then the governing bodies above the clubs need to keep that clubs in line and make sure that they're doing their bit to keep their players and the fans.
Well, it's also check. The clubs can't punish anyone because that's not they could stop fans coming to home games at their stadium, but that's all they can control. So it would be clubs and teams have to battle down on that and ban people who are being like that. But ultimately, it's the governing body, it's the Premier League, it's the board. They're the only ones who can really change and ban people and make these regulations and rules different. Otherwise, the club's just going to be doing it, and they can only affect home games. anything else is going to be up to the Premier League. Obviously, if every club in the Premier League had the same regulations and rules, every stadium would be as close to clean as possible. And on the topic of racism and that issue with players getting abused, it's quite a childish thing. Like, I feel like it's been getting a lot worse recently because of the rise in, well, not the rise, but because of the presence of, Black Lives Matter and equality protests and stuff. Because I know it's important to still do that, but the issue again is you're giving people the attention, like the abusers the attention. So it's like a child. When you tell them not to do something, they're more likely to do it. So when players like kick off after the game, rightly so, because they're being abused, fans are just going to be like, well, you can't control us. Let's just keep doing it. Do you know what I mean?
But they should be controlled, surely.
Yeah, they should be, but it's not something that an Instagram post is going to fix. Which is why I just think it's just making it worse at the moment with players putting it on Instagram.
It's also not something that keeping quiet about it will fix.
Oh, no. I don't blame the players. They've got to raise the issue. Otherwise, the governing body aren't called to action. They're not called to do anything. And these minority group of horrible fans are just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, they need to actually take action instead of literally just like, it's almost like empty threats. But instead, they need to actually hand out bans, hand out fines, and keep on top of it rather than a slap on the wrist. That just does nothing to people. If they're going to go to that extent to abuse someone, just turn like, oh, stop it. It's not going to do anything. You have to actually do something about it.
Well, especially since racism's a hate crime, and like even just as an example, if a stadium gets, I don't know, like a bomb threat or something, or some violence threat, which does happen, that person's going to be punished and arrested. It's almost, I know racism in itself isn't posing a physical threat to human life, but it's still a hate crime. Sometimes it can, yeah, but for the most part, in especially in Premier League stadiums, they're all just shouting because they can shout behind the cover of the crowd and not have any repercussions. It's like if they were standing face to face with Martial or Rashford or any other black player that's been abused, doubt they'd say it to their face because you've got that confrontation issues, and some players would beat them up.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's like when you're in a car and someone pisses you off on the road, you can be far more vocal in the car about complaining about them, if that makes sense. But if you got your windows down on a hot day or something and like they could hear you, you're far less likely to actually say it, aren't you? Because you're exposed to the elements and they can hear what you're saying and they could potentially react and get angry at you. So it's just, they're just making the most of the fact that they are just sitting back in the crowd. They're protected by the crowd. They're just a small figure in a vast majority of people, and it's impossible to pick them out.
Shall we move on to a lighter note now? And just
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to ask this question just to get another conversation going. Do any of you guys know why Liverpool are doing so bad? They're what are they now? 19 points behind City. Where is what? Well, I've just got the up-to-date figures.
Yeah, it's a very simple issue, James. They've got about half the squad injured.
I can give you a more tactical reasoning behind this.
Yeah, go on,
Fred.
So you can see from the game that Van Dijk got injured, Van Dijk was so incredibly integral to Liverpool's side that you can see now that what he was doing in that side has the numbers he was putting out they've just gone. I think what Liverpool, we're very technical here, but Liverpool were very they didn't progress the ball through the middle. They tended to try and Van Dijk tended to try and play long balls. They progressed very much through transition through long balls with Van Dijk. Without that, they've kind of gone to try and force it through the middle because now Henderson's dropped back and he's trying to dictate play a little bit more. So now they've lost Henderson as well. They really have no progression. Their midfielders are very meh when it comes to trying to progress the ball forward. They've tried to address that with Thiago, but he really has had a stuttered start. And I think the abuse he's getting is fair in a way, but still not very good for him and his play. But it all comes down to that injury for Van Dijk, and they've lost the progression he gave. Maybe the leadership's still there, or was still there until Henderson got injured, but the progression and the way they played football completely changed when they lost Van Dijk. I know I've just gone very, very tactical.
I think just a comment.
It's just a knock-on of injuries and
yeah. That's the basic answer. Yeah.
As much as it pains me to say, because I hate them, they have really been one of the unluckiest teams in the Premier League this year in terms of injuries.
Ethan Lee giving Liverpool a bit.
Well, they have. You can't if everyone went into going into this season, you would have said Liverpool or City are the favourites.
Yeah,
that's a no-brainer. But now, just over halfway through the season, there's no way that Liverpool are the favourites anymore. And you can't put that down to anything else but bad luck and injuries.
I think it's a combination of three things. So there's obviously the loss of Van Dijk and the tactical change, the loss of half of their team and all the injuries. But I think it's massively psychological as well. So obviously, they were near enough there around the top to start with, and then they're dropping off. And obviously they won it last year, so they're psychologically like, oh yeah, we've got to go out and win it again this year. They're basically out of the title race now, I'd say, and so the players have nothing to particularly push for. They have no end goal that's gonna be better than last season. So it's almost like psychologically they're just drained. They don't have that extra push.
No, I would 100% agree with Ollie here, because I think as a club, at the start of the season they'll be going, right boys, we'll go for it again, we'll try and retain the title. And when that happened, when that injury happened, when the downturn in form happened, they need to change what they expect from the season. But whilst it may not have the desired effect of pushing them forward to try and win the title without him, at the end of the day, he was so incredibly important that changing the expectations of the players and giving them not easier expectations, but ease the weight on their shoulders, trying to go, let's maybe not go for the title this season, lads. We'll just go for Champions League. Because at the end of the day, if they don't get Champions League, serious issues we had with financially as well, because they're a very high paying wage club alongside the likes of United, and they don't have the financial oomph that probably a United or a City do. So they need to get top four, and I think that's what it will come down to this year.
No one has the financial oomph for City.
Yeah.
But right, one final thing about Liverpool is on the topic of what Ollie said, psychological issues and stuff. They must have some psychological issues knowing that they've now won a Premier League, and history could repeat itself. Could be another 30 years before they win it again. That's what I would love to see. That would be beautiful.
I think that's a bit too long term, and a lot of the players.
I'm telling you, in 30 years' time, when I'm middle aged, that's what's happening. I'll be crying because Liverpool have won the league again.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of the players, while we think they're playing for the badge, at the end of the day, if you asked a lot of Liverpool players now, I don't think they would be able to tell you the most important years for the Football Club. But I think some of the players will be gone in 3 or 4 years. They'll look back at this time as a good time, but they won't be thinking that far into the future. Maybe maybe the young boys at the club, the 15-year-olds, will be thinking, "Oh God, here we go again." What poor time for us to come through, but still, it's a bit far in the future. A bit of a stretch that one, Ethan. A bit of a stretch.
Obviously, mentioned United briefly there. One very positive thing from this season is Rashford's campaigning for the free school meals. Let's end on a positive note.
Oh yeah, no, he's really setting an example for what football players can and arguably should be doing. I can praise him all I want because I'm a Manchester person and I support the team and stuff. But even if I wasn't from Manchester and I didn't support him, I'd still be. I think it's impossible to not praise him this season. If you're not, you've got some. Well, you're part of the problem if you're not praising him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. he's just showing like the amount of pull power that these professional footballers can actually have in situations.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to spark some change as well, because he's showing what football players can do. They're choosing not to do that when they don't do it. So it's like there's a lot of players who are going to be like, well, I'm just a piece of shit compared to Rashford, aren't I? Because I'm not. Do you know what I mean? If I was a professional footballer and I saw Rashford doing that, I'd be like, oh God, I should be doing that as well. Do you know what I mean?
They're like, oh, I can make a change as well. If I had more people doing it, the amount of change they can make would be insane.
Well, and it's going to be like an expectation from fans as well, because I'd expect more. I've always expected more players to be doing that because they've got loads of money. They don't need all that money. They've got loads of free time when they're not playing football. No offense, and they've got the freedom to live life as they can.
And I think some of the things that some footballers maybe forget about is their roots. A lot of people, footballers, a lot of them have been privileged, so they don't know what it's like to struggle for the next meal, and all things. Live in poverty, not have a house. But I think footballers have got this platform, and so do so many other people who are successful. They've got this backing, and they've got
it's not
support.
just football fans, but every other professional sport fan, every billionaires as well. I mean, everyone really, even like you or I, we should do it as well. Like everyone needs to do their little bit of good.
People should be looking at Rashford as an example and thinking, how can I use my platform to push my cause and to better the world? And I think Rashford is absolutely amazing for all the work that he's done, and he deserves every single bit of praise for what he's done.
Just hopefully he keeps going, because he sparked a really good change here, and I'd love to see it keep going. I'd love to see if other people are inspired to do the same, because that would be really positive in the Premier League, especially when there's so much negativity around at the moment as well. That would be ace.
Will?
Yes. Lads, I didn't even see. Okay, we'll cut that out.
Oh God!
Will is you're
You're not with
You've
it
had a
today, are you?
shocker. You've had a shocker,
right. Let's do the outro.
Right, anyways.
I think that's a good positive note to end this week's episode on. Thank you, Freddie, for being our first guest. It's been very good.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah. So next week we've got a few ideas for the topics. We're not entirely sure. So we're kind of midweek, we'll put something out about what the topic will be. No.
Hell, James.
Jesus. I was going to ask him to do the socials, but he's not going to be here. Follow us on the socials. They'll be in the description below. I think we're on 10 kind of podcast providers at the moment, including YouTube, which is pretty good. So thank you all very much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.